Hello, sweet innocent mortals. Welcome to Talon Tales. I am Matt. I'm your GM for the evening in this latest episode of Symbaroum, the dark fantasy tabletop role-playing game from the excellent Fria Ligan. And I hope you enjoyed our new intro countdown. Wasn't that exciting? Probably more exciting than anything we'll do today. And courtesy of Steve, the stream manager over on our Vampire series, who does quite a lot of our graphic design for us. The other person who does graphic design for us and artwork is our stream manager on this stream, John. Say hello, John.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. I didn't prepare anything to say because...
Why would you? So John will be, as usual, managing the stream for us, as the job title suggests, inserting artwork and shuffling people around and occasionally looking in chat and maybe banning some awful spammers in there. Who knows how lucky we'll be tonight. But thank you for that, John. And now John will retreat back to the darkened boughs of Davakar. And let's start by going through the exciting little promo stuff that everyone does at the start of a stream. First off, all of our links, our social media, things like our Twitter and Instagram, which are Telling Tales RP, are listed below. Also listed below is our Patreon. If you feel like supporting us, then get yourself over there. And our YouTube, which is where all the video-on-demand content from Twitch ends up a couple of days after broadcast. So head on over there if you want to catch up or revisit any of our wonderful, high-quality streams, he says. Well aware that there's, a cat box and stuff like that in the background. But let's bring on our players and recap the events of last time. And you know what? We'll bring on everyone at once this time, and we'll just see how that goes. And we'll just go round them one by one, because last session was a bit odd in its structure. We finished off the main story, but then we just had little vignettes from everyone to kind of fill time through to the end of the stream, although filling time in a wonderful way. So you know what, John? Why not bring everyone on? Every single one of them. Hi, everyone.
Heck. Hi, Dr. Nick.
So last time we were finishing off The Mark of the Beast, the middle installment of the Copper Crown trilogy. You had tracked the Flayer, the awful, bloody serial killer, to their lair. You had eventually discovered that the killer was Alahara, the changeling companion of Gorak, both of whom had been treasure hunters and had brought back the Copper Crown from the depths of Davakar and had been changed unimaginably because of it. You managed to kill the Flayer, but were then betrayed by Baumelo the Witch Hunter, or should I say the cult leader Odarko masquerading as Baumelo the Witch Hunter, something discovered by Anton, our priest of Prios, on a little journey of his own. And you managed to come away with it. You'd killed the killer and you'd defended and just about saved your lives, although you were battered and bloody. But you'd lost the Copper Crown, essentially. You hadn't managed to recover it, and this has been taken by Odarko for mysterious and undoubtedly perfectly fine purposes elsewhere. So then we had some little vignettes to tell kind of what your characters were doing in a couple of weeks after that. And we'll start off with Elle, a.k.a. Ephanea, our barbarian warrior of the killing with one hit. And yes, what did Ephanea get up to?
So Ephanea was just hanging. She was drinking pints in the pub with her buddies, being only mildly unintentionally racist towards Ascarai. But, good-natured. She's trying to become more learned and less useless. And also may have started a romantic venture with our priest's favourite pal, Blackhawk.
Blackhawk, undoubtedly the most popular NPC in the series for the audience.
Completely.
Maybe not for the players.
Well, Mike loves him.
Mike's a big old fan. And then we had a bit of a vignette from Stio. So, Chris, can you take us on a wee tour of that?
Yeah, myself and my good pal Ascarai did a little walk out to Blackmore, where our previous accomplice, what's his name? His name is there
Shuglud.
somewhere. Shuglud the Goblin, who helped immeasurably at the Siege of Jackad's Heart, had found himself on bad times with some of his friends, and who, instead of accepting his cut of the share of the money for those events, asked me to find him a good death. So that's in work, I suppose.
Yeah, he basically wants you. You work for Mother Mahira's agency, or at least three of you do now, which is essentially a kind of mercenary or sellsword guild in Thistlehold. And Shuglud seems to think that he and his brothers and sisters of the remaining members of the Carabadok tribe, basically they just want to go join the rest of their tribe, and to do that they need to find something to kill them. So they've decided that they'll work for free for the agency until they find the death they are looking for. And then we had a nice little bit of sort of priestly private eye action with Antom's vignette. Antom, of course, played by Mike.
Yeah, so Antom has been asked by his best pal Keller to investigate some people who are heckling an upstart priest in Thistlehold called Father Symbaroum. Myself and Ascarai went to go and find out who was doing that, with mixed success.
That's fair to say. And then finally, we had a little vignette from Ascarai, who'd kind of cameoed in a couple of other ones. Our resident Ranger Changeling Ranger, Changler.
Changer Rangeling.
Yeah, he was going illicitly treasure hunting.
Yeah, no going and talking to people for me. Just sneaking into the barracks and stealing an Iron Pact related ring was the goal, and it went shockingly smoothly, really.
It did. You managed to recover the Iron Pact ring, once worn by one of the victims of the Flayer, and now you have yourself a little artifact that might help you maybe learn more or even make contact with members of the Iron Pact, the mysterious alliance of elves and other beings who seem to really want to keep people out of Davakar. But that's fine. I'm sure you're never going there again.
No.
Why would you? Why would you go to Davakar in a game of Symbaroum? So there we go. Those were the events. You're all still in Thistlehold. It's now approximately 2 months later after this. Your lives obviously haven't been uneventful, but nothing huge has happened in the meantime. Why don't we have just a sentence or two on what you'll have been doing in the meantime, just like the tiniest of tiny highlight reels about that activity. Steo, why don't you go ahead first?
Making better friends with Effie and Ascarai, and doing happy guild work, and trying to get involved in whatever mechanism guarding caravans to Kravosti entails.
Kravosti, of course, the heart of power of the barbarian witches in the north, just kind of in the south part of Davakar, where you can kind of travel a bit without being immediately slaughtered by horrible things. Mike, what has Anton been up to?
Yeah, so I think a mixture of things. Obviously, he's got some priestly duties which he must attend to, such as maybe continuing that investigation for Keller. I think also, he's now aware of how dangerous the North is and has been sort of steeling himself and preparing himself for this. So maybe doing a bit more research into Davakar and the things that occur there, and also just looking to sort of work on himself, should we say, to improve his chances of survival in this strange land.
Excellent. And Elle, what has Ephanea been up to?
So Ephanea has been just kind of doing whatever bits and bobs of work she can get her hands on from the guild to try and build that dollar to send it back to her family, and also has been, deepening her relationship with Black Hawk, and has been attempting don't know how successfully, to teach him to be less of a coward and to fight a little bit better.
Well, like he certainly could use learning to fight a bit better. I don't know. Is he a cat? I'm pretty sure he's not a coward by our standards. Although maybe by the standards of Thistlehold, he is a bit. He did leave Jackad's heart that one time to try and help you.
True.
But then you all ran away, so you know.
He did also suggest that he leave instead of the children to go to Thistle.
Yeah.
If I remember.
Come on, hand on heart. Which one of us? Which one of us? So, Sam, what has Askarai been up to in the intervening weeks?
Probably hang out in Thistlehold a bit with Stia and Ephanea. Has likely done a couple of trips to Karvosti just for work, for general trying to find people to guide through Davakar or guide back one way or another.
Sure.
If Antom has been attempting any more private eye missions, he'll have been helping out if requested. And that's probably the most of it. If Stio, if Askarai ever has an opportunity to go with a caravan to Karvosti, he will attempt to help Stio and or Ephanea get that work if it seems possible.
That sounds good. Sounds good to me. Well then, let's pick up our story a couple of months later. So we're now in the very kind of depths of winter in Thistlehold. It's not. There's no snow on the ground at the moment, but it is. It's been very frosty, and the cold has been very sharp for the past couple of weeks. And everyone is kind of huddling down as much as they can by fires, trying not to leave their hovels as much as possible, and generally just kind of bedding in for a long winter on the fringes of Davakar. The four of you, I'm perfectly happy to say, are perhaps in the early evening in the Witch and Familiar, and are maybe sat around having a drink, idly watching people go past. You haven't really worn out your welcome from the Witch and Familiar yet, so you're still getting some free drinks and like some free beds and things like that. So it's a good place for you to spend time. And as you're doing so, and sat around, a very cold-looking and tired-looking novice of the Ordo Magica stumbles through the door and kind of heaves it shut behind herself, and is kind of peering around the Witch and Familiar, clearly looking for someone. And then she sees the four of you, and her eyes widen, and she starts kind of navigating her way through a small crowd in the Witch and Familiar towards where you're sat.
I guess I'll kind of elbow whoever is to the immediate left of me, and just gesture towards the girl, who I'm assuming isn't particularly making any movements to conceal the fact she's clearly headed for us. Yeah.
No, not at all. She's fairly guileless.
I hope it's not about that book.
Oh, the book! Man, I completely forgot about the book. I wonder
it's a coincidence because your characters did as well.
It was in character. That was, yeah.
You've made some. She kind of goes over to you. She doesn't immediately look to sitting down, but she's still kind of slightly bundled up in a very cold-looking robe. Honestly, very thin sack-like robe, and says, "Are you? Is it Stio?"
Oh God, I hate it when people know my name.
And Father Antom, and she kind of looks a bit warily at Askarai, who's probably, I imagine you're sat there with your mask on.
Mm-hmm.
And you must be the barbarian girl. I've been sent to fetch you. Master Ephanea, not Ephanea, Master Euphrinda wishes to talk to you all.
Oh, that rings a bell.
Oh.
That was the unhelpful one from the tower, wasn't it?
It was
She was-
the
yeah.
master who was somewhat terse with you.
Oh,
Well-
well, fancy you reminding us all about that book. Okay. Are we going now, or can we finish our drinks?
I said I'd fetch you as quick as I could, but
Well,
she
you can't
kind of
carry
glances
four of
over
us.
the bar slightly and says, I see no reason why you couldn't have been slightly late.
Drink up then.
She scampers over to the bar quickly and gets herself a half of ale, knocks it back extremely fast before coming over and kind of standing by the table and waiting for you all.
I'll follow suit and neck my pint rather quickly.
Heave myself to my feet with all of the sounds one would expect from a disingenuous 50-year-old man, supping the last of my pint as I get my coat and long spiky stick back.
Sure. In that case, I think it's safe to say you all kind of gather up, head out of the Witch and Familiar, and start walking through the frozen streets towards the Ordo Magica, which is not that far away, but also not that close, especially at this time of year. You stride down the street towards it, a very tall, ramshackle wooden brick building, and are immediately let in the front doors by it's actually not the wizened goblin you talked to before. It's another novice who sort of waves you in and says, she's waiting in one of the front audience chambers. The girl with you kind of nods and says, and peeks round a couple of doors and then says, oh, yes, this one. Thank you. Thank you. She looks like she's waiting for you to get in there as fast as possible so she can
Just
go
head
sit
in.
next to a fire.
Just walk straight in.
Okay. The audience chamber is fairly large room, mostly kind of wood panels. It's got a large fireplace which is roaring, and Euphrinda is sat right next to it. We have a picture of Euphrinda that we can bring up. She's smoking a pipe and is kind of very, very large woman in every aspect. Very tall, very broad, very bulky. As you come in, she kind of chews thoughtfully on her pipe and then takes it out of her mouth and says, right, well, I suppose we still have some business, don't we?
I will look at her and just kind of feign ignorance. And she'd be like, do we? I thought all our business was settled up months ago.
Well, if I recall correctly, which I always do, I seem to remember asking you to recover these stolen books.
Ah! Yes.
Which I am assuming you did not, and I am assuming you did not keep them or sell them on for your own gain, in which case I would imagine they were consumed in the conflagration at the trading post.
Yes, well, we were a little busy at the time, what with the abomination and the treachery and the bloodshed. You can imagine it was a little bit busy for us, so...
She snorts slightly and blows out a wide cloud of smoke that drifts up to the roof of the room. Yes, well, regardless, it seems that another opportunity for you to aid the Ordo Magica has arisen. And if you do so, well, you will earn some pay via your little agency, of course. And also, well, perhaps the Ordo Magica will look past your dereliction of national duty.
How
I'm
kind.
just going to kind of look at her, and I'm a bit angry at this point. Just like, not forgetting the fact of course, that it was indeed the Ordo Magica's incompetence in not recognizing that they were dealing with a shapeshifter who was the one who stole their books, of course.
She chews on her pipe quite loudly and says, I think you'll find it was the Ordo Magica's servant who was incompetent, not the Order itself. He has been duly reprimanded and retrained.
Sounds painful. What's the job?
Well, at last one of you wishes to discuss the future, not your irresponsible past.
I want to discuss the pay, but let's find out what the mark is first.
Well, there is a specific reason we've come to you regarding this. It seems you are the closest Thistlehold has to experts on this skull and crown, yes?
Why does this thing follow us? I wish not to be an expert in this matter, yet here we are.
Yes, everyone who is an expert wishes not to be one. Yes, the cursed crown. Proof that the only thing that comes out of that bloody forest is money and problems. Where's it showing up now?
It seems you already know. Look, after the incident you were involved with, the Ordo Magica found reason to try and obtain some more information about this artifact. We lent rather heavily on a former friend and companion of this changeling, the so-called Flayer, and we managed to discover the location of the ruins from which this copper crown was recovered. We sent an expedition there a number of weeks ago, and we were in contact with them via magical means, of course, until recently.
Of course.
I am sure they will have taken care of themselves to some degree, but should anything be wrong, we would be remiss in our duty if we didn't check on the lives and well-beings of a master and several dozen or so novices.
Several dozen novices into that forest.
I'm just going to kind of lean in and just... Are you trying to tell us that you're expecting us to go into Davakar?
Yes, is that a problem? I thought it's what your kind did.
My kind knows well enough to stay away from the damn forest. Mess with it, you die. It's as simple as that.
Oh, well, if you don't want the pay.
Well, where is it in the forest?
At least let it be in the blasted light part.
It's not too deep. We can give you a map, and we can give you some guidance on how to get there.
How many days travel?
Depends how well you travel, doesn't it? Oh. It's no more than 100 to 150 kilometers. But that's if you travel as the crow does, which I would not advise. It's on a river. It's on the River Malgamore. We can go into traveling details and expenses and such like more if you would accept.
Well, the exact location is important. There are places in the forest where no amount of pay will suffice.
Very well. She stands up and kind of opens a book in front of her and draws a parchment out from it and lays it on the table in front of you. John, can we have the map, please?
No, you may not.
There we go. I don't know how much people can see the fine detail of that. But down towards the southeast of the map there is Thistlehold. And then kind of the sort of the kind of middle-ish left, you can see Karvosti. And then the ruins themselves is the big circle to the right of that with the ruins written on it. So that is kind of the rough spread of it. She kind of waves a hand over the map and says, if I were you, I would take the river from Karun up towards the Volgoma. Maybe stop at Karvosti on the way if you have the urge to do so, to resupply or what have you. And then you can follow the Malgamore up to the ruins. That's what the expedition did.
Didn't go so well for them.
Well, they got there. They were there for weeks before we lost contact.
Okay.
We do have a duty of care to end that crown business if it's within our power. On the other hand, not for a shilling a day. You're going to have to do a bit better than that.
Well, as I would expect, this isn't... You're not guarding some petty noble in Thistlehold. You're going to Davakar. I may be harsh-worded, but I'm not stupid.
Good.
Here is our deal for you. We will pay for your transport. If any of you lack a license to go into Davakar, we will pay for that. As for additional remuneration over your expenses, these ruins are currently earmarked to the ownership and investigation of the Ordo Magica, as per our authority from the Crown and as per the orders of Mayor Nightpitch. Anything in them which is not considered of important research value for the Ordo Magica is yours.
And this is on top of our guild pay, yes?
There will be some minor amount of guild pay, yes, which will be more than you earn for daily sellsword work within Thistlehold, but not greatly so. Your chance for profit here is largely linked to the opportunity exploring the ruins affords you.
Money and problems. Askarai, you've got the most experience in the forest. What do you say?
I think it's doable.
It's on the river.
It's on the river. The route from Karvosti to the Sun Temple it's not safe by any means, but it's been traveled enough times that it's more well known than other parts of the forest.
Euphrinda kind of jabs a finger at the forest below the Malgamore and says, and besides, you probably have friends there, eh, girl?
Aye, that is true. It's one of the only things actually making me want to accept this damn quest, is at least I can stop off and see my family on the way.
Yes, for anyone not in the know, the Odaiva.
I have no idea how whether pronounce it.
Let's call them the Odaiva.
Yes.
The Odaiva or the Odavs, as they would be referred to, are Ephenea's barbarian. Are they referred to as tribes or clans in the book?
It's
tribes, right?
Tribes. It's
tribes, yeah. I'm getting myself crossed with vampire.
Okay, this was bound to catch up with us, and on paper seems to be the least worst confluence of issues we could experience with tracking down and finishing the work we started those months ago. So,
Theo, with respect, I disagree. We'd be bloody fools to go into Davakar. As Euphrinda says, we are the people who know more about the Copper Crown than everyone, and surely our best role is to stay here and warn people of the risks that it poses and intervene just as we did with Barmello Odarko, and keep the people of Thistlehold safe. If we travel to the ruins in Davakar, we'll be gone for weeks, and who knows what trouble could erupt here in the meantime.
Nightpitch knows, and the guard knows. Look.
And besides, we were here to warn them last time, and how many deaths did that prevent?
Euphrinda kind of pulls herself up to a full height, which is probably a little bit above even Ephanea, and says, oh, and besides, Father, think of all the poor children of Prios, those novices abandoned to their fate in those ruins.
So, is your priority to secure the ruins and the items there, or to find your missing party?
I don't particularly see a difference. But if you have to choose, yes, the safety of our order comes before the exploration of one more ruin in Davokar.
I mean, if something goes missing in that forest for any number of weeks, especially from your expeditions, you know we're probably going to be finding this party in very small, probably quite smelly chunks.
She shrugs and says, well, at least we can say we have looked.
What a dirty mess this affair is. I still think we should do it, but just...
Look, we can... We need the money. I do not like it any more than you, Anton. In fact, as someone who, quick out of character question, obviously looking at the map, my clan is in Davokar, isn't it?
Largely, yes. Your clan occupies the lands to the south of Karvosti, essentially between Karvosti and Thistlehold.
So, as you know, there's me, and I spent most of my life growing up in my clan, which is practically like in Davokar. Ascarai knows his way around. I detest it, but we could get the money, and if we have a chance to kill Baumelo, I would relish it. He needs to taste Blackgift's steel for what he's caused. Well, the imposter anyway. Wait, do we know he's an imposter at this point?
Yeah.
We do, don't we?
Yeah, you will have shared full details of the events with Anton. So.
Okay, well, that's as close to the decision as we're going to get. Anton, will you come with us at least to bring Prios's light to the unfathomable darkness of the forest of money and problems?
And I think that is the only thing that I can hold on to in this time, that some good may come of this.
I figure our party's all about accepting the jobs that no one else wishes to have, so why turn down another one?
Euphrinda nods and says, well, it's a dangerous reputation to have, but it may yet prove a profitable one for you, yes? Once upon a time, that was said about Night Pitch's little group as well. And they're mostly still around.
Everyone goes into that forest wanting to be Night Pitch.
Well, if you have concerns about what it is to be one of those renowned adventurers, perhaps you can ask your mother about it. Mihira, yes? Did you not know she was one of Night Pitch's?
Oh, yes. I hear the stories of her all the time. Poor creature.
Just so people know, that wasn't her just slamming on Steel's mum. Mother Mihira, who runs the agency, is... yes, she was one of Night Pitch's former companions. Euphrinda shoves the map over the desk to you all and says, very well then. I expect to see you in, well, weeks, months. If you want my recommendation, you should travel over to Kurun and commission a boat there. There should be some traveling north still at this time of year.
Will you release some the best information that can be spared about this crown and its history, what has been deciphered?
You know as much as we do.
Fantastic.
That is why we need to find out more.
I'll be needing one of those licenses.
You're on mute, Sam, by the way.
you said you would pay for our transport.
Yes, we will provide you with some amount of funds, or to be more precise, a promissory note, which anyone reputable will take from you.
Okay.
Ask the novices outside about it. I think that concludes our business. Good evening.
Well, yeah, I'll make to leave.
Excellent. You head outside, and the novice, the one who opened the door, he's literally waiting with like a sheaf of papers for you, and says, "I assume you have accepted the charge."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, Master Euphrenda has a way of making these things happen. We have been instructed to give you these. He passes you about a sheaf of about 10 notes on, essentially, yes, promissory notes. They basically say the carrier of these, you trade them the note for, accommodation, travel, things like that, and the Ordo Magica will reimburse the carrier of the note for said passage or accommodation or whatever. You suspect, you can imagine the Ordo Magica is a very well-respected organization. It would only be kind of people who don't want to be noticed by the Ordo Magica who might not want to take such things. So they should function.
Shall we retire to the pub and have a good chat about this?
It might be the last chance we can to grab an ale in the Witching Familiar.
Oh, God.
Take advantage of that.
True.
So you head your way back there, presumably as fast as you can in the chilly streets. And you can be in the Witching Familiar, having a drink, talking about these things.
Oh, I don't want to take anything back from that forest.
Look
Maybe
what
if we
happened
just-
last time someone took something back from the forest.
Yeah, that's the problem. We're going to shoot. I don't.
It is, to be fair, worth noting that people come back from Davokar with things all the time and sell them for a lot of money that don't necessarily turn them into ravening, blood-hungry monsters. Necessarily.
Steo is absolutely in the Davokar's money and problems viewpoint. I don't know. FA, I suppose. Well, I'll take a quick look at the map. So we boat north from Karun.
Should we flash up the map again if we're talking about it?
Would we have any business at Jakar? I suppose not, but it might not be our boat, so...
The village where your family lives isn't far from Jakar, Elle, although it's definitely not in Jakar. But it's not too far from the waterway, and it's, you could definitely stop off near there and go visit your family.
Out of character, is Jakar a barbarian town, or is it a?
I think it's something that's not overly detailed in the books. But what I'm going to say is it is indeed a barbarian town, but one that is sort of become more and more influenced by Ambrian culture and has a strong Ambrian presence there for trade and business purposes.
Okay.
So it is very Odava, in that the Odava tribe are seen as the barbarian tribe who have most... I guess, compromised on Ambrian ways with the Ambrian peoples as they came north.
Well, I can lead us safely, at least, to my tribe's village, and that, by the looks of this map, is about 50% of the way to the ruins. So, at least half of the journey, I'm fairly confident that I can guide us there in relative safety, as safe as one can be in Davokar.
Do you think that between Jakar, maybe a trip north to Kravosti, we could get a guide for the remainder of the journey. I mean, the Sun Temple here stabs on the map a bit. Prios's men have been up that far. That's a semi-secure location, isn't it?
It's certainly a place that people travel to at least somewhat regularly. I think.
Ditto also, the Earth Towers of the Blackleach Rift is considered a mostly safe location of multiple ruins that have been investigated greatly over the last 20 years.
I like the idea of spending as much time in these safe places along the way as possible.
Yeah, look, it's like I said to your one, it's the least dangerous way to interface with Davokar, with the ruins being basically in the middle of the closest thing to safety that forest offers us.
I think the journey there should be. It might be dangerous, but I think we can manage it. I think the ruins themselves are probably as far west on that river, as far east on that river as I would like to go. I think it will be the ruins themselves where we should be most careful.
What are the chances of not just finding a guide in Karvosti or someplace like that, but finding another band of treasure hunters who are making a journey in that direction, who could join us? We've got to be safer in greater numbers, right?
I could possibly ask not in Karvosti, but I could possibly ask in my hometown, though we Odeva clan are, of course, wary of going further into Davokar. It could be difficult to convince, but I do hold some sway there, as our blacksmith was very popular.
The other thing about going with other adventurers, like, you lads have seen what happens when you fuck about with stuff that's been dug up in that forest. You've seen what it does to people. Other adventurers go in there all wanting to be night pitch, and they go and put their hands on whatever they come across. Other adventurer groups, in my opinion, and I'm going to be honest, I've never even been to Karvosti before, but from what I hear about what the goings on with adventurers in this forest, there's one thing less dangerous. The only thing more dangerous than a group of adventurers after Night Pitch's fame and fortune is the elves themselves.
I do think traveling with more adventurers could bring its own problems, as you say. Maybe we could travel with some priests heading to the Sun Temple if we wanted to travel with others.
I would be inclined to agree. And only above that, I would suggest Ethanea, if you know a competent woodsman who would take money to act as guide, that would be the most ideal.
I can ask about.
It's worth noting as well as the promissory notes, by the way, there was an explorer's license in that sheaf, which Anton can make use of. It does have a date on it. All explorer's licenses have like a date on them of
validity.
Yeah. But it's about 6 months from now. You'd hope you're back by then. And the three of you who are part of the agency will all have. The agency will purchase your explorers licenses.
So, can I get a bit more information? How many kind of notes of writ do we have? I assume we trade these as kind of, we pass one over and we get an item for it.
Yeah, or like, if you're hiring a boat, for example, going up the river, then you give them that. And there's areas on it to write where, like, you and the person you're getting the service from have to sign off on what they've provided you. You know what? Let's just roll. I caught it. Let's just roll this and see how many. There are 5 promissory notes.
How are we budgeting then? We need 2 boats.
Curran to Jakar, maybe. and then maybe Jakar to Karvosti. Karvosti down the river towards the ruins. Maybe
Karvosti and Jakar is a distance you could easily just walk.
Well, we've got to get across the river somehow, right?
Sure, but you'd probably get passage there or something. But some of these things might be, cheap enough that you can just hand over an Orteg or two for them and not waste one of your promissory notes. But
I think it's one boat to Jakar, and then we're going to have to make a decision on whether we take a boat up the river. I would prefer to rely on Evanea's clan for good directions once we get there and their decisions. Getting back will be the same, and then the return. So what does that leave us? 2 notes to get to Jakar and back from Jakar. We reserve 2 notes for Jakar itself, and that leaves 1 note plus whatever money we have to hand to viticule ourselves in Thistlehold, because this is the last chance we'll have to buy good equipment. I am not an explorer, Asker. I am talking like I'm some kind, like I've done any of this before. You have the most experience with the forest. What do you think we should do, given we've got 5 pieces of free money there?
Well, I think it's as you say, except it might be better to have a note left over in case of emergency rather than buying too much here in Thistlehold. I think we obviously need supplies, but perhaps we could get them in Karun. It might be the travel there should be fine. I think we just need to manage our promissory notes as well as we can.
Sounds good. So we kind of pack light on our way to Karun then, unless there's something we want specifically from Thistlehold beforehand.
I think that's a good idea. I don't see any particular reason why you wouldn't. Why you would want to take more than you need to when you could resupply further in. I'm not going to particularly do things like overly monitor the food you have and stuff like that. I don't particularly want to turn it into like a survival, like a survival game sort of thing. So. We don't have to worry too much about that, but certainly notifying that you have some form of, transport, some form of supplies and some form of keeping yourself alive on the way would obviously be good. So, yeah.
I think we'll spring for horses to Karun. Not with a note, though. We'll probably just rent some.
I agree.
Because that would be a day's ride, wouldn't it? Thistlehold to Karun.
I was literally, as you were doing that, I was double checking what the distance between Karun and Thistlehold is, but my Adobe Acrobat is relentlessly crashing. So
we can eyeball it.
It looks like it's probably 70 kilometers maybe on the map.
Yeah,
So
there's
50 miles.
Literally a little map, and I think it's in the Thistlehold book, and it literally gives. Okay, I can open stuff now, and it literally gives the day's travel to Karun. Let me just try and find that. There we go. Here we go. Because it was the one I used for travel to Glimmervan as well. Karun is 3 days ride.
What?
So 3 days ride. So you're looking at like about a week's travel if you're just walking.
Yeah, we'll get horses.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm going to release my apartment as well, because there's no point in me. Yeah. Because Theo doesn't have any kind of material to speak of apart from like his travel bag and stuff.
Yeah.
Some old keepsafe. So I suppose I'll throw all them in a bag and just release my my apartment.
Sure.
My bedsit. So when do we set off?
Well, since we've got it all sorted, might as well be sooner rather than later, I suppose. Quick we get going, the quicker we can get back.
So let's take one day to make final arrangements. We'll meet.
You might what you'll probably want to do. It's possible that if you, I mean, you need to notify the agency anyway. But if you go and talk to them, and talk to Earthons, it's quite possible that the agency will be able to provide you with horses to get to Karun and back.
Nice.
Well, to get there anyway.
So how about we finish up here? And what time is it? Is it still? This kind of happened in the evening, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get a good night's sleep, and we'll go to the agency tomorrow, and we'll assume we're setting off on the morning of the day after tomorrow.
That works for me.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm happy to just skip forward in time to the agency the next day then. That seems like a good thing to do. Let's whiz this map off screen now. Anton, do you think you'd accompany them to the agency, or?
No, I think I'd probably go to the church in Thistlehold and probably getting. I'd sort of inform the sort of higher order priests there of what I'm doing and get their blessing for it. And I was like thinking as well about like, could I use my contacts trait to like potentially send a message to a priest in Karvosti if there is such a thing there?
There is definitely a priest in Karvosti. There is a temple of Prios on the very like Karvosti is set on a plateau that rears above the forest, and in recent years, because there is an old ruin there that seems to be a ruin of Prios, that came as a big surprise to the Church of Prios. Basically, the witches allow them to utilize it as a temple. Yes, I think I'm right in saying that. I have read a chunk of the Karvosti stuff. So yes, there are definitely priests of Prios.
And would it be possible? Like, I don't know how communication in Symbaroum works. Like, would it be possible to like sort of message ahead to?
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
sort of, you know,
you can like
carry a pigeon or what have you.
Yeah, exactly. All the major centers of living would have people you could go to who can send a bird to a certain area. All our games at the moment are carrier pigeon heavy, but yes, you could absolutely do that. Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, that seems like a good thing. I mean, in terms of talking to the higher priests you get the impression more and more as time goes on that Keller is almost effectively blocking you from talking to them, because anytime you try and talk to anyone, he just says, because he's your contact there, he essentially goes, no, just talk to me, and I'll come to you. You definitely get the impression that he's trying to. At the beginning, you thought he was kind of trying to cut you out so that he could get the work and the attention of these two priests who traveled up from Indaros to here. He's done it so much now, though, that I don't know. You're wondering what his game is.
Yeah. In fact, the more time that I spend,
cloak racket,
the more time that I spend in Thistlehold, the more I think that no one really minds what I do here.
That does seem. Yeah, that does seem to be a thing. They haven't provided you accommodation. They haven't given you any direct requests. They haven't assigned you, anything like preaching or maintenance of the church or anything like that. You just seem to have arrived here. Keller kind of went in and said, "I'll deal with this," and now you just seem to be a priest in Thistlehold, or almost cut off from the church.
Yeah, and I think. I think sort of after a good night's sleep, I'll have come to terms with the fact that Prios has, got maybe a deeper purpose for me, and I'm more happy to make this journey north.
Yeah. So you're saying Prios doesn't like you and he wants you dead? Yeah.
Self-hating priest.
Sure. Well, let's have the other three at the agency then, so we can shuffle Mike off screen for now. And you head to the agency in the morning. The three of you together. I don't see why not. You walk up the kind of low set of steps towards it and head in. In the main kind of common room area, there's a few people sat around, people you recognize, people you don't. Off in the barracks area, you can see a couple of people still sleeping off heavy nights, and you can see Shuglud and his Karabadok companions gathered around the fire, kind of speaking in low voices to each other and sharpening their blades. They're still wearing the kind of skull-like white face paint. And Shuglud kind of glances over at you all as you come in and just looks back down at sharpening his blade. If you want to talk, the person usually you deal with, your immediate, the one person you, all three of you essentially report into at the agency is Urfons. And he is sat in a corner with his feet upon a stool, his rather like oddly large blade for a goblin rested across his lap and just kind of
Well, I have no tact whatsoever, so I will just go up to him and kind of tap him on the, like, shake him with on the by the shoulder a little bit. So, oi, Fons, we got a job.
He goes, "Oh, careful, girl. I drank my weight last night."
I will swiftly step back out of vomiting range.
He doesn't seem queasy or ill in any way. He just kind of blearily opens his eyes at you and says, "The three of you?"
Yep, the three of us. Crown's got more bloody work for us again. I didn't think when I went in the Witch and Familiar that night months ago it would apparently be serving me for the rest of my life. But here we are. We need I've forgotten what they're called.
Licenses.
We need explorers licenses. We're being shipped off to Davakar by the Ordo Magica.
He definitely came more alert as you mentioned the crown, and he says, "Right, tell me everything. I'll go sort it out." You don't need to roleplay telling him everything. You fill him in on the information, and he nods and says, "Okay, you want to leave tomorrow morning?"
If possible.
Right. Leave it with me. He kind of rests his sword on the ground, which is taller than he is, honestly, and heaves himself up to his feet and goes, "Ugh."
Oh, sorry, mate.
All right. I'll go talk to the mother about it. Ordo Magica. Always bad business.
Yes, well, you know how Euphrinda can be. It's difficult to say no to her.
She's a charmer.
All right.
Meet me at the Western Gate tomorrow morning, just after sunrise.
Best we better go and say our goodbyes then.
He nods and wanders off back in kind of, like I said, the backstage area, back in the kind of rear offices of the agency where you don't really get to go all that often. Is there anything else that we can have Mike back now? Is there anything else that you guys want to do through the day to prepare, or anything you want to purchase or anything like that?
Question: would Shuglud and co consider a death in Davakar, exploring ruins, as a good death?
They may do, but now they're signed up to the agency. So effectively, where they go to have that good death is entirely up to the, slightly enigmatic planning of Mother Mahira.
Ah, okay. In that case, no, I don't think there's anything I particularly. I'll probably. Can I ask if Blackhawk wants to come along with us?
You can ask.
I've been training him, and I'm going to be gone a while.
Do you want to roleplay this, or do you just want the response?
Let's just go with the response.
Sure. He declares that while his love for you is both eternal and frankly disturbing in its power, he must remain behind, for he is, the singer of songs and not the instrument of Prios himself. But he will pray for your safe return, and every day without you will be like a small death. It's entirely up to you how wise to his nonsense Efenair has become over the last 2 months. Because I know Efenair is slightly naive, but probably not this naive. I imagine for the first month or so, you were like, what an amazing, emotional, florid, charming man. And now you're maybe starting to... These things maybe make you roll your eyes now rather than... It's up to you, though.
So, yeah, she's just kind of going to stare him down a little bit and just be like, my love for you is... I don't have the words. You just stay here and drink. Of course. I'll be back in a few weeks. And she'll just kind of like sigh deeply.
As you stride off, he calls after you, I will sing tales of you, my darling, whether you return or no.
She will shout back, what do you mean? Oh no.
He's gone back into the witch and familiar at this point.
She's just gonna shake her head and mutter under her breath that she may have made a bit of a mistake.
Can I just say, I'm really looking forward to the scene when you return.
Oh, God. Oh, God. He's going to have slept with someone else and she's going to have to kill him.
And it's probably going to be a serial killing situation, in fairness.
So, does anyone else want to have any other business?
Nope.
Just buying supplies, really, I think, is the only thing.
Sure.
Random.
We'll bundle my possessions. I don't think anyone's going to be using one of the notes of credits at this stage. We're just going to hope to get some horses on the cheap and make our way across.
Well, no, you've already got some horses, haven't you? The agency's going to provide you with them. So one thing we should do, Anton, can you give me a persuasive roll? Because that's what you need to make for your contacts in order to basically find... You need to find someone within the church who you can talk to who might let you know who to send a pigeon to in Karvosti to try and prepare for your welcome.
I don't make it.
Then, it's probably... Keller has blocked you from this so much that the people you try and talk to within the church are kind of like, who are you? I don't know. Maybe talk to Keller and come back. And maybe Keller, So he has really blocked you out of anything here. And you're getting a growing sense that this is, this isn't just him wangling in church politics. Wangling? It's he clearly this is some premeditated odd little strategy he's got, and you're not exactly sure why.
Okay.
As chat just said, you've been church blocked.
I've been Keller wanged.
Keller wanged.
That's Kellawang.
So, Steo, Askarai, any kind of business? Oh, Askarai already said you're purchasing supplies and the like. Yeah, like I say, I'm not that interested in sort of fully getting to massive details on like food and the like of stuff and like that. Shall we just say that outfitting yourself for this journey, I think it's a safe thing. This is what I consider a safe number to charge you each. And if you pay this, we probably won't really have to talk about food and general equipment. I think preparing yourself...
I have bushcraft.
Yeah, you do.
Just to point out.
Sure.
So, and like if we just as just in case anyone wants to spend slightly less money, I have bushcraft, which does allow me to find enough food or water to feed myself. But it can also be used to find food for the group, I believe, at the expense of some movement.
Yeah.
So-
Well, it's entirely up to you what you do. I would because I don't want to monkey around with exactly how much food you're carrying. I would say if you want to consider yourself safely provisioned and equipped for this journey per person, it's going to cost 5 shillings. I mean, that's food for
You muted,
weeks
Chris.
and so on and so forth. So if you want to be properly prepared for this, spend 5 shillings. If you want to rely entirely on the bushcraft of Ephenea, maybe don't. But I would advise you to. But otherwise, I'm going to say you're literally walking into Davakar with a weapon and your personal effects. But the 5 shillings will buy you, a backpack with food and cooking supplies and all these kind of things.
I paid the money. I just want to note that it's exactly 1 shilling more than we earned for tracking down the skin friend.
It is. It is indeed.
Yeah.
No, you earned 8 shillings for that.
But that was
okay.
off 2 sets of people.
Yeah.
So, technically, say we split that down the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will begrudgingly pay. Oh, no, wait, I'm going to purchase a backpack and, a lot of some food. I don't know, maybe 4 shillings rather than 5 shillings worth of stuff.
Like I say, and not to take away your agency, but otherwise I'm going to have to calculate,
oh, God.
Oh, well, Elle's got slightly less food. I would
I'll
say
just spend the
either
5
pay
shillings.
it or don't.
All right. I'll pay it.
I mean, no,
angrily,
if
literally.
Ephenea is confident in being able to find food on the road, then just don't.
She's not going to pay it. She's confident she can find food on the road. It's
Sure.
that young confidence that will inevitably lead to her death when
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, it's fine.
Don't know what you mean. Okay. Well, anyone who's paying it has paid it. I'm imagining that everyone but Ephenea has sprung
Yep.
the cash.
Yep.
So with that in mind, unless there's anything else anyone wants to do, we'll rock up at the western gate of Thistlehold the next morning. You find standing by the gate in the freezing cold, kind of a cold mist has risen, and you can't see very far out of the western gate at all. You can see that by the gate are 5 horses, and Urfons is kind of tugging the straps on the horses to make he's checking their saddles and their tackle and all this kind of thing, making sure everything's sorted for the journey. And he turns as you approach, and as you approach, you notice that very large sword of his is strapped to the side of one of the horses.
You coming along for the ride, Orphans?
I am. Someone's got to keep you all alive.
Willingly as well.
It's not every day you get to explore a new ruin.
Well, it's good to have you along.
It's going to be cold. He is wearing a big, bulky fur of some kind, and he tucks it tightly around himself and scrambles at the side of the horse. Of course, he can't kind of just leap over. He's too small, so he has to kind of climb up the side of the horse, with hand holes, and then haul himself over the saddle.
It's kind of adorable, I'm not going to lie.
Just don't tell him that.
Yeah.
Everyone else just saddling up?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless there's anything we particularly want to do on the 4 days. Was it 4 days or 3 days ride? 3 days
I think
ride.
you said 4. Oh, 3, okay.
I may have done 3 days ride to Karun. Unless there's anything we particularly want to do or interactions we want to have, then we'll skip forward. I would say that I think it's very likely that you'll stop off for a hearty meal at Jackad's Heart, both for free and because to see the family there on the way. But is there anything you want to cover from those 3 days at all?
Not to my knowledge.
That's fair enough. Then
Wait.
Oh.
Bushcraft.
Oh yeah.
Will I have found food?
Is there a roll you need to make?
I don't
for
think
it?
so, to be fair.
Not if it's just for one person.
No, if it's just
Okay.
for one person, yeah. I just
Then
I
yeah,
find enough.
that's absolutely fine. Yeah, there's there's plenty of kind of bushes with berries and that small game you can hunt along the way. So yeah, you definitely keep yourself fed along the road to Karoon. You turn up there 3 days later. Karoon is quite vibrant, but definitely smaller than Thistlehole's town on the banks of the river. It's the main amount of traffic through it seems to be along said river, and you can see kind of boats and ships of various sizes traveling along as you kind of crest over the shallow valley that leads down to it. The buildings are look oddly much more kind of professionally and less ramshackle made than those in Thistlehold. And you see as you kind of slowly lead your horses through the opening streets of the town that there are a lot of kind of very wealthy looking trading posts here and artisans and things of that nature. And it really seems to be a kind of settlement that's sprung up specifically for the purposes of trading along this river with the kind of the immediate interior of Davakar. Erfons looks round at you all and says, "Are we going to the docks then?"
I suppose so. Need to secure a boat.
Yeah.
He nods. All right then, and you ride down to the docks, which are rudimentary but clearly very functional from the amount of traffic that's going through them. There is a kind of dockmaster who's stood. Like the docks are kind of fenced off and people are queuing up for access to them. And there's a dockmaster stood there with a couple of assistants. And she's like going through details with people individually. And it takes about half an hour for the queue to get to the five of you. Erfon seems perfectly happy for you to take the lead on this. And the dockmaster, she looks up at you and says, "Well, where are you going?"
Northbound to Jakar.
Right. And what is your purpose up in Davakar?
Ordo Magica business.
Right. Got your licenses?
Of course.
She doesn't actually look at them individually, but as you wave them, she's like, right, yeah. Well, there's a number of vessels here that take transport, small transport like yourselves. Go to the north side of the docks. Ask around. There's less than when it's warmer, but you should find someone willing to take you up there.
What would you say is a good price?
I wouldn't like to say.
Fair enough.
Does anyone want to make any kind of like persuasion attempt or anything like that to try and get additional information, or are we happy with what we've got?
So once we're away from the dock and kind of in a group, I kind of would like to ask, do we know if the Ordo Magica or the guilds have like carriers who we should be talking to here, or are we just going to pick the least
Kind of suppliers and providers, sort of?
Yeah.
Erfon shrugs and says, "There's no one we work with regularly on this kind of thing."
I think your friend would have mentioned it if they had someone here.
I don't think Ordo Magica have anything in this town. It's been a while since I've been here, though.
We have the note anyway.
Erfons looks over at Anton and says, "Priest, you're good at persuading people to give up information and freedoms for the promise of magical sun gifts. Go see if you can get some more information from the dockmaster, would you?"
Oh, I like to think that I can persuade people to do things in a better way than that.
I'll kind of, if Askrai's next to me, I'll kind of very in a low, like as low a whisper as possible go, looks like we found someone with less tact than Effie.
Erfon's grins and kind of. I assume you're wandering off and trying to get.
Well, yeah, part of me obviously doesn't want to because he has
Sure.
just persuaded me to do that. But yeah, I will go and do it.
Sure. As you kind of wander, as Anton wanders out of earshot, Erfon turns to the three of you and goes, "I like him."
You like him? Jeez, you're weird. I never got you exactly 100% red, Erfons.
Anton, do you want to make? You don't have to talk to the dock master. You could just kind of ask around. But do you want to make a persuasive roll?
Yeah, sure. I'll ask around.
I only had Erfons ask you because I think remarkably you may have the highest persuasive, even though it's not that high, is it?
Yeah, it's only 10, but I made it.
Okay. Yeah, you kind of the dock master. She looks busy dealing with further people in the queue, but you kind of tug gently on the arm of one of her assistants, who turns around and says, "Yes, Father."
I'm looking to make passage up north to Jakar, and I'm looking for some advice on how best to do this. Any reputable travelers, any reputable boats?
He kind of nods and says, "Of course, for a priest of Prios, absolutely." And he kind of goes through. It seems to be like a listing, maybe, of all the people who are docked here at the moment. And he says, "Oh, well, between you and me, Captain Ogval of the River Maiden. They tend to be fairly reliable and cheap. They're up and down the river all the time, and they usually have berths for your as many in your group. So maybe look out for them again to the north of the docks, Father."
Thank you. Give them the symbol of
Their
Prius.
blessing.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to the team and tell them all about Captain Ogval and the River Maiden, and yeah, we'll sort of make our way northwards to look for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Good. As you relay this, Erfons kind of claps you on the back and says, "There you go. I told you you'd be good at it."
I have my uses.
Good at many things.
Healing is one of them.
Just one of the many things that Anton is good at.
Anton is
rolling.
excellent at.
Absolutely.
I'm excellent at healing with my bottle of magical healing potion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you wander up along the docks, and before very long, you're kind of passing a lot of kind of smaller boats compared to the ships that are also traversing the river, and you're just kind of look. It's very easy to see which vessel is which, because they all have their names emblazoned on the side in kind of large, proud letters. And before long, you find yourself looking at the River Maiden. She is, to your inexpert eyes, a relatively large boat with some people kind of walking around on the deck, quite kind of set low in the river, and kind of moving cargo on and off gently, and yeah, quite a calm little scene.
Okay. I'll sort of make my way, and I guess are there people sort of unloading from the boat that I could call out to? Is there an obvious captain there?
They're more loading on, and there's a few people doing it, but one of them, who's dressed the same as the rest of them, is a youngish man, maybe in his mid-20s, with a kind of mop of brown hair, and he seems to be directing them. As he's doing so, you can say, "Arello, no, take that down below. We don't want that moving around on deck."
I'll wait for a sort of an opportune moment where the captain's a bit quieter and sort of.
You catch his attention quite quickly, standing there, and he turns and says, "Father, can I help you?"
Captain Ogval, I believe. My friends and I are looking for passage up north to Jakar, and you were recommended by someone on these docks, and we wanted to, inquire about traveling on your fine vessel.
He nods and says, "Well, I'm glad the River Maiden has a good reputation. Yes, I'm Captain Ogval. The five of you?
Yeah, I've gestured to my companions behind me.
He nods and says, somewhat unusual group, if you don't mind me saying so. What's your business up in Davokar?
That remains to be seen, let's say. We're traveling under the guidance of the Order Magica.
Right. Promissory notes, then, is it?
If you accept them.
May I have a look? He kind of takes one from you and kind of looks over it, flips it over, and he looks up and says, I'm sorry, Father, but I just have to check. Kind of holds it up to the light, tilts it a bit around, and says, these look to be in order. We definitely have room for you. You have to sleep on the deck, I'm afraid. We don't have cabins or the like. But at night time, we pull cloth over sailcloth. It can get quite warm under there, especially if you're very careful about setting a small fire. If that's all right with you, then by all means, we can't take the horses, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I believe that would be the case. Fine, we'll have a deal.
He kind of puts out his hand to shake on it and says, excellent, wonderful. Then we're leaving in around, he looks up at the sky, 2 hours. If you've secured your horses by then, come aboard and we'll head off. We've only got one more passenger along for the ride. We're mostly hauling cargo, so we shouldn't have to wait too long.
Fantastic. Right.
He nods and kind of turns away and carries on directing the loading while the other river roamers, as the sailors along this area are known, are kind of glance at your party curiously.
So, with 2 hours, this place sells a lot of very nice equipment. Shall we go do some winter shopping?
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get rid of the horses.
That's true.
Irfan says, don't worry about that. The agency has a stable we use here. I'll take them in there and then they'll be led back to Thistlehold.
Great, that's one less problem.
So Irfan kind of heads off with the horses and leaves you to it.
With regard to, like, that was one note, wasn't it, Ask? That was one note, wasn't it, Anton?
It will be one note for passage, yes.
So, we've 4 left. They're going to be no use to us in the forest.
I should point out that while these are provided for you for accommodation and travel and supplies, I suspect that if you take any supplies beyond basic equipment and food, then the Ordo Magica will refuse to pay. Like if you go get the fancy army you're after, they ain't gonna pay that for that, you know.
Transparent like a window. Yeah,
sure,
no,
I mean 5 more Thala or so, and then we can afford armor.
Fair, but like in character, I'm still weighing up whether or not I want to chance my arm.
I mean, if they don't supply it, you'll end up with bailiffs after you. So, if you can't pay for it, so
as long as they're just normal bailiffs and not Crown of Copper bailiffs, then okay. Well, let's go take a look around like the various shops. I assume there's a lot of very fancy stuff that's miles out of our price bracket here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge. There are some pleasant, nice artisan shops here, but they're not. It's not like you're in Inderos or anything like that. One thing I would say is that you certainly could have perhaps paid, and I'm happy retconning that you did pay for the 5 shillings worth of supplies and equipment each with a promissory note. That would certainly have been a perfectly valid thing for you to have done.
Not for the sake of 5 shillings. Want to try?
You ain't going to get more than 5 shillings worth out of a promissory note by going to it. Like, you're not going to get any improved gear by going, and it's simply not what these are intended for.
Yeah, so like in character, I am not keen on using the promissory notes for consumables, and very keen using the promissory notes for the most possible value I can get out of them.
Sure.
I'm very aware that given my lack of experience in financial matters, I'm probably going to end up just handing a load of promissory notes back.
Sure.
What about our sort of clothing? Like, and I'm not talking about armor here, but like, winter gear, because we're heading further north, right? So what do we currently have in terms of that? Like, we've got some kind of warmish cloaks, I guess, because we've been traipsing around in the winter for a bit in thistle holes. But
if you wanted to get absolutely kind of like thicker kind of winter traveling gear, that would absolutely be a very valid thing to purchase.
Okay. How much?
I'd happily have thick winter traveling gear for all 4 of you for a promissory note.
I'd sign off on that.
And then Keller will come and take it, right?
Yeah, one problem at a time.
His cloak sense will go up.
I looked in every shop in Thistleholds for cloaks, so I couldn't find anything.
Anyone watching this who has not seen our episode 0 prologue will be so lost at the repeated cloak in jokes. Yeah. Yeah, gonna exchange that. I think that's worthwhile. I think that's a very worthwhile choice, and may lead to a lot more favourable rolls when you get yourself travelling on foot. Okay, is there anything else you want to kind of take a look at while you're here in Karun, or are you happy to head to the River Maiden and set off?
Quick question: would they, since obviously we're going into colder temperatures, will it be like? Are we talking like snow cold?
I mean, it could be. Yeah, it could be.
I may invest in not using a promissory note for it. I may purchase some snowshoes. Basically, they're roughly about 5 shillings if there's a shop that sells them.
I'm happy to have included those in the winter gear you just purchased.
Excellent. Well, perfect.
It's not so much the monetary value of these things. It's whether the Ordo Magica would consider them to be reasonable expenses for the trip they've commissioned you on.
I assume we can count a nice a length of decent rope as well.
Yeah,
and all this,
all that kind of stuff. I am happy for you to have kind of 1 copy of each basic dungeoneering equipment that you could imagine you having. Like, I'm not saying you each have a length of 30-foot rope, but like you can have 1 example of everything that you could reasonably expect to have. And I don't need a list of them or anything. It's just, if it crops up at the time and you're like, we need rope or like something to do this, we'll say, yeah, you've got 1 of those available.
Cool.
I'm going to reluctantly buy some more arrows just in case.
Now, we've discussed this before. I think the arrow listing on here is horribly high. Like, it is insane. 1 shilling per arrow is ludicrous. That's 1 day's pay.
Yeah,
to buy an arrow. I think that's absolutely nonsense. I'm going to say, traditionally, in role-playing games, a sheaf of arrows is 12 arrows, right? That's what it always used to be in fantasy stuff in like the 80s and 90s. I'm gonna homebrew. I can't speak. I'm going to change that to 1 shilling for a sheaf of arrows.
Okay.
Because I think it's insane to have a shilling per arrow. Because as you say, how can you ever?
Yeah, I think I wrote earlier that like if we have a fight on a day of work and I shoot 3 arrows, I'm like working the next 2 days for free just to break even with my arrow expenditure.
I still think a shilling for a sheaf might still be too much. I don't know, but we'll go with that for now. So you can certainly get an extra 12 arrows for that.
Thank you.
It's an interesting side hustle to just go around collecting misfired arrows.
It's like it's literally like a glitch in Skyrim or something. Like you just get infinite gold by doing that. Yeah. Anything else from anyone, or are we happy to move on to the River Maiden?
Happy.
Good. Earthons meets you back at the docks, and you clamber aboard the River Maiden. It seems to have 4 crew, and there seems to be another passenger on board as well. He's kind of a man of early middle age, sort of grey and a bit grizzled. He's wearing a very plain cloak and has a small set of kind of those nose pinchy glasses that he's using to kind of page through some kind of old, slightly mouldering book. And as you get on, he kind of glances up at you and gives you a fairly friendly little wave, and then immediately goes back to leafing through. Within minutes of you getting on board, the River Maiden heaves off from the dock and starts heading north. And it occurred to me that I didn't really look at the map and really think about whether you'd be moving with or against the current. I think
We will be
you'll
moving against.
Yes, because the river doesn't empty out into the Lake Volgoma; it seems to come from the lake. So, with that in mind,
Oh no! Wait, no. It is toward, because it's coming from the Ebble catchment toward the Volgoma and emptying out to the west end at Savona.
Handy having a sailor in the group. So, in that case, they raise their sails. And you start drifting because there's a southerly wind, southerly or northerly wind, Chris. So if it's coming from the south,
it's a southerly wind. Yeah.
It's a southerly wind. Okay, thank you. So you start heading north immediately at a fairly fast pace, and before long, the sort of house roofs and chimney smoke of Kroon are out of sight. Over the course of the next few hours, you kind of familiarize yourself a bit with the crew and with your fellow passenger. Your fellow passenger is a man called Harasto, who says he's a scholar, and he frequently travels between Karvosti, which is where the River Maiden is heading, although they will stop off at Chakar, and kind of down here in Thistlehold, and just kind of finds loose bits of information and scholarly pursuits to occupy him with. There is the captain, who's called Ogval, as already indicated. His head river roamer, who's called Arello, who's kind of an older guy with long hair and a big scrubby beard, who seems fairly kind of cheery and happy guy who's constantly needling his fellow river roamers with friendly barbs. There's Tamri. She's quite quiet, a younger woman who seems very intent on her work, and also very frequently seems to come out with little kind of superstitious phrases and sort of pleas for aid from various supernatural entities. And a small goblin, she's called Migra, and is also one of the kind of river roamers who's scampering around and, adjusting sails and all this kind of thing that I won't go into too much detail on, or Chris will just start correcting.
So the 2 junior members of the crew, I assume, are kind of barbarian stock rather than
one's a goblin.
Yeah.
And Tamri does indeed seem to be of barbarian stock.
Yeah.
Arello and Ogval are both Ambrian.
Okay, cool. So the other traveler, just
Harasto.
Yeah, well, kind of like I would kind of at some point find an excuse to have a group meeting out of earshot from the rest and for strategization. So that's scholar, lads. Would one of you 2 fine, sneaky gentlemen try and get some information off him? Maybe he knows something about the crown. It's unlikely, but it's not going to cost us anything to try.
I'm going to look mildly offended and just say, "What, Steo? You think I could not charm him with my womanly ways?"
That's a very good
I'm
point.
being quite serious.
That is a very good point. But don't you have a attachment? A paramour.
Sadly, Chris for me has frozen. I did not hear anything that just happened.
He said, "Do you not?" Basically, he said, "Don't you have a paramour?"
I will, I said, yes, I do, of course, which is why nothing would transpire that. And she's just kind of going to fumble on her words a little bit and just kind of, look, we both know that my paramour is irritating.
I didn't want to say it, Epinea, but you do make a good point. So I will offer the job to whoever feels like they want to have a go. These bookish sorts can get a bit reclusive when someone of my stature and history goes up and starts needling them for information that we shouldn't be reading in our military tactics books.
Fons is kind of languishing on a bench that's kind of by the God, I even fail at this element. The bow of the boat, yeah, like the edge, right? Like where it drops off into water.
That would be
where
the
the
gunnel.
boat stops. The gunnel. Okay, thank you. I swear I do know words for this. They're just all vanishing from my head. And he's kind of languishing on there, kind of like faintly dozing, and just says, "You should send the priest. His tongue's his best weapon."
I regret to inform you, Anton, that
didn't mean it like that.
I think Alphonse has taken a bit of a shine to you there, Anton.
That's Anton chosen. Good luck. Have fun.
I have a different suggestion. Ascarai knows the North better than I do. I think that he should play a part here and have a chat with the gentleman.
Unfortunately, people don't seem to be too trusting of me.
No one wants to talk to this guy.
While everyone's kind of bickering about it, Epinea is just going to have slowed over. Because at this point, everyone's just talking and not doing.
Sure.
So she's making her way.
Headed
downtown.
over. Sure.
Yep.
Do you want to just give me I know you're not trying to get specific information or whatever, but just give me a persuasive roll to see how generally charming you are. And how charming your cat is. And
she thinks the dice is candy. Please, cat, no. Okay, yes, I will give the roll. The dice is not candy. Tess, please move. I mean, like, let me tell you, it's a bad thing that people were kind of arguing over who was going to do it, because Ephinea's persuasive is only 9. So here we go. Let us roll. God damn it. I got 9.
Hey, there we go. You wander over and strike up a conversation with this Harasto guy. He seems perfectly happy to talk to you. He says he's a scholar from the south, and he just travels around here, trading in the occasional artifact and doing some basically freelance researching by the sound of it. You briefly mention the Copper Crown to him, and he gives absolutely no indication of, he doesn't ask you about it or anything like that. He just kind of nods and carries on talking about some other interests he has up here.
I'm going to grow swiftly bored once I've ascertained that he clearly doesn't know, and he's using very long words that I don't understand. So sure. I'm just going to be like, yes, well, very good. I must return to my companions now. Goodbye. Just walk back.
Farewell. He kind of waves a bit to you and then goes back to kind of writing stuff down in a little notebook.
Yeah, he knows nothing, guys. He luckily, for once in our journey, the scholar may actually not know something.
You know what? At this point, John's got a nice little plan of the River Maiden. Why don't we pop that up? Just so we have the general layout of it in our heads. There we go. So it hasn't got the key on it because the key gives way too much information. So that's I'm gesturing with my mouse here, but of course you can't see me. That's kind of number 1 bit in the middle at the top there, the grating. That's obviously leads down to the cargo hold. The oars are next to that. Where you guys are is the section labeled 4 at the back of kind of at the rear of the deck there. But it does have kind of sailcloth pulled over it to a greater degree. And then the kind of red area to the back of that at number 5, that is an area with what looks like more or less kind of permanent tenting laid over the top of it. That is essentially where the crew all seem to sleep. It's not a fancy boat. You know, it doesn't have cabins or anything like that. Yeah, and that's about it. If anyone has any questions.
I have opinions, but no questions.
Sure. Well, for a start, the sail is super small.
Yeah, and the wrong geometry for a riverboat. Anyway, let's...
Sure.
Literally unplayable.
Refunded. Yeah. Cool. But yeah, that's what it's like. So you're kind of gathered around the rear of the deck there and just, you know, sitting. There's not an awful lot to do. You can see the landscape.
On number 4, did you say?
Sorry? Yeah, around where
yeah.
the number 4 is. If you, when you kind of look over at the shoreline, you can see it kind of rolling past at a fairly swift pace. It's mostly still kind of farmland around here, or at least kind of arable land that is, you know, open for farming and hunting and things like that. You can see kind of the dark blur of Davokar in the very kind of horizon distance, but you're still really quite some way from being within Davokar itself. Is there anything you particularly want to be doing through the day, or are you just kind of
at some point I'd like to speak with the captain when it looks like he's not busy.
Sure, that's absolutely fine. Would it be fair to say then that you're maybe lurking a bit around the crew quarters and just kind of waiting to grab an opportunity with him?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool. In that case, do you want to give me a vigilant roll, please?
Okay. I have the dice roller ready.
Just says a lot about how many dice I make you guys roll.
Okay.
The suspense is killing
I
me.
made it by 1.
Hooray! So as you're kind of like hanging out towards the back of the deck, you hear sort of low but quite angry voices, I guess, coming from inside the crew tent. You can hear Ogval's voice saying, Tamri, look, I've told you about this. We're not carrying out your practices. We don't do that on the boat anymore. I know my mother did it differently, but we're not doing that now. You understand? And stop talking about Belda. Whatever happened, it wasn't something from one of your stories. Now that's enough. Go back out and get to work. And a couple of moments later, Tamri, the youngish barbarian woman, kind of somewhat storms out of the tent and kind of walks past you without glancing at you and goes and furiously starts kind of curling some lines, some rope up on one side of the ship. So Ogval seems to be in there, and by the sound of it, maybe is the only person in there now.
Okay, interesting. I'll go in. I will act as though I have not heard.
Sure, yeah. Ogval kind of looks up and says, "Oh, yes. Can I help you? Is there something you need?"
If you're not too busy, I just have a couple of questions about our journey.
Yes. By all means. He walks over to kind of. It seems out of place in this effectively just large tent, but there's a little kind of cabinet on the wall, like mounted against the back of the deck, which he opens up and takes out a glass of kind of watered wine and pours you a glass and hands it to you and pours himself one and sits down on a stool and gestures for you to do the same.
Thank you. Well, for a start, I understand you're heading to Karvosti, but we're going to stop at Jakar first.
He nods and says, "Yes, though if you want to stay with us to Carvosti, that's no problem either."
How long do you expect us to be traveling?
I mean, it somewhat depends on the wind and how hard the river's running. This year it's been quite low, and we haven't been making good time. I'd say we're looking at maybe half a week.
Okay. The main question I wanted to ask was about the next stage of our journey, which we're planning to head towards, at least in the direction of the Sun Temple.
Right, you're going quite a bit deeper then.
Yes, unfortunately, we're considering taking the river Malgamore in that direction. I wanted to ask your opinion on: have you traveled down there? Do you have any colleagues who have traveled down there?
We don't travel that deep. I have known other captains to do so. In all honesty, my advice to you, if you're intent on traveling along that river, find barbarians who will take you. Talk to Odavs, of which you are traveling with one, it seems.
Yes.
Perhaps even some of the high barbarians in Carvosti can help you, but any Ambrian captain who travels down the Malgamore, they might know what they're doing, but they are not a cautious captain.
Okay, understood. Hopefully, through my companion, who, as you say, is an Odav, we can find a good contact to take us down, and we can have a safe journey.
He nods. The Odavs tend to be trustworthy. We have one on this crew. You should be able to find some help on your journey.
Okay.
But travel as safe as you can.
Yeah, we intend to do our best. Hopefully, everything goes smoothly.
He nods and kind of knocks back the watered wine and places it down and says, "Of course, if you have any other questions, please come talk to me. I have to go see to my crew now, I'm afraid."
Okay, thanks for your time.
Mm-hmm.
I will head out back to the rest of the group.
Sure.
And I will relay both what he told me and what I heard previously.
Sure. Absolutely. Elle, I think you're on mute.
I started to speak, but then I heard you start to speak, so
Sure.
I was like, "Go on."
I think we can have the boat map off now. Thank you. Is there anything anyone wants to do with the rest of the day? Or are we happy to move on to the evening and sleep and all those kind of things?
I was going to speak, but after having what Ascarai told us, I was going to see if I could perhaps speak to, what was it, Tamri?
Mm-hmm.
Because she's a barbarian. What clan is she? Do I know?
She's an Odav.
She's an Odav.
Mm-hmm.
I might try and speak to her.
Sure.
See if I can find out what the deal is. Being Odav myself.
Sure. But what specifically are you talking to her about?
So I'm just going to ask what practices it is that the captain's referring to, and who Belda is.
Sure.
Was it Belda? I think. Yeah.
It was Belda. Yeah. You kind of catch her on her own near the literally all boat words have vanished from my head. Near the front of the boat.
Nice.
You can have bow. This boat's too small to have a forecastle.
Thank you. Bow of the boat. And she kind of looks over at you as you come over and sort of cautiously nods at you obviously recognizing that you're both part of the same tribe. And is there any particular way you want to ask her about it, or are you just are you being effing about it?
I'm being very effing about it. I'm just going to go up and say, look, there's no other way that I can say this. I happen to. I'm not gonna say ask her I heard it because I don't want to drop him in it. So I'm going to just say it was me. So I'm going to. I couldn't help overhearing the discussion that you were having with the captain earlier. Captain's Ambrian, right?
He is yes.
He? Yeah. These Ambrians are often dismissive of our clans, of our tribe's practices. Do you wish to talk to another Odav about what it is that's concerning you? What practices has he banned? It seems harsh.
Tamri kind of looks around and says, You are one from the water's edge, yes? I asking if you come from a settlement near the edge of the lake, which you do.
Yes, I will confirm as such.
Have you heard the tales of the River Maiden? Not the ship.
I don't. Have I heard the tales of the River Maiden?
Give me a cunning roll.
Okie dokie. It's cunning roll time. Please be good to me. So I rolled a 9. My cunning is 7. Yeah, no.
She, as you kind of look at her with some like a questioning glance, she kind of shakes her head, kind of, seemingly slightly cynical of, an Odav not knowing, these young Odav not knowing their heritage. She looks barely older than you, but clearly she considers you to be corrupted by Ambrian presence. And she just starts talking. One early morning, a river fisherman harvested his fish traps and found an elderly woman in one of them. She had gills on her neck and had apparently exhausted herself trying to get free. As the fisherman helped the woman, she asked to be let back into the water, but the greedy human asked for something in return. The woman suggested that his family always would get as much food as they needed from the river. The fisherman wanted more and asked that he should be granted food enough to feed the whole village. With a grunt, the woman accepted his request. The next day, the fisherman made such a huge catch that all villagers could eat their fill. Their joy was clouded by one of the other fishing teams vanishing without a trace. Nothing but their rowboat was recovered. The day after that, the lucky fisherman caught yet another motherlode, not as big as the first one, but enough for all, since a second team of fishermen had disappeared. And so it continued, a big catch and missing colleagues day in and day out, until none but the lucky man remained. Then the families of the lost fishermen gathered and forced the man to tell his tale, after which they flung him into the water as an offering to the angered river goddess. The catches returned to normal, and all the lost fishermen returned to their families without remembering what had happened. Ever since then, the villagers sacrifice a part of their daily catch to appease the maiden of the river. Ogval does not continue the practice that his mother respected.
Seems foolish of him. As a seafarer, why would he risk? I believe the story, of course. Why would he risk his and his crewmates' lives?
We Odavs know. Other tribes know. You need to respect the sacrifices that must be made to the river. These Ambrians.
Oh, they're blinded by the light of their apparent sun god. Sometimes there's no talking sense into them.
In any case, Belda, she was another river roamer on here, a member of the crew, a long-serving one. A few days ago, she vanished.
We think it is to do with the lack of offerings.
It is clear to me that the River Maiden, tired of waiting for her sacrifice, took one of her own. Ogval, he does not see it the same way.
Well, with your permission, may I speak with my associates and colleagues about this? They're a good bunch, and we try not to discriminate based on beliefs. I'm sure even the priest would be happy to help.
She shrugs and says, "Do what you will. He will not change his mind."
I'll just kind of nod and start turning off back towards the group. And thank you for your time, Tamri. It's been good to speak to another Ordav.
She nods.
Yeah, I'm gonna return back to the crew and just let them know what she's told me, basically.
Mm-hmm. It was clear, by the way, from her telling it, she wasn't kind of telling you an anecdote she knew about it. It's a legend.
Yeah.
Folk tale, evidently, of the Odavs.
It sounds to me like a superstition that you would expect from the people who haven't had the guidance of the church to set them on the right path.
I'd like to imagine that is Sam laughing and Ascarai laughing.
Definitely.
You are delightfully naive about the realities of this forest. I mean, maybe it's not a river goddess, but...
Erfon kind of screws up his face and says,
What do you reckon?
"What? So every ship on this river throws part of their catch back, otherwise every time they don't do it, people start disappearing." I think we'd have heard of that, wouldn't we?
We have now.
Well, yeah. Honestly, it will be not even on my top 10 list of weird shit that this forest and the stuff that happens up north is involved with. Like, I wouldn't even bat an eyelid. Like, this would be a boring story in the pub in Thistle Halls. Like, this is not... I'm far more likely to want to follow local folk customs here, because whether or not it is attesting to some divine entity, that's for Antom and his sort to decree. But the less we do to anger the frankly terrifying forces of this forest, the happier I'm going to be.
Doing anything that goes against the wishes of the captain of this vessel is a dangerous game to play.
We're customers.
Erfon says, "We're passengers." And Antom is right. He's the captain. Do you want to get put off the ship here?
How? Well, I see a number of opportunities. I see 3 ways we can pass through this. 1, we do nothing, potentially. Run the numbers, superstition, chance, coincidence, we can take no action. Number 3, we can go and tell the captain, look, you've got your writ from the Ordo Magica, just put another extra portion of food on that, and we'll follow whatever rites or rituals Effie declares is necessary for the situation. Or number 3, we go hungry for a night and we cut the offering from our own stash. Do it on the secret.
I am not prepared to pay any credence to the customs of a so-called gods other than my own.
I'm willing to do whatever it takes, evidence-based or otherwise, to survive a trip to the most dangerous set of trees on this world.
Erfon shrugs and says, I have been on boats up and down this river before, and none of them carried out this ludicrous practice. It's superstition. Look, clearly the woman didn't want to scrub decks on a small boat up and down this river anymore.
Jump ship.
In any case, we can talk about it in the morning. Night is drawing in. I suggest you bundle up warm. Fons is kind of like wrapping himself in his big fur cloak and tucking himself as deeply into a corner as possible.
So, Effie, do you know the rights involved here?
No, not.
I'm afraid not. I hadn't even heard, or if I had, I'd forgotten it. Perhaps my mother told me when I was younger than I am now, but I had the barest trace memory of the tale. I have heard it before, but hearing it again just jogged my memory, so sadly I know nothing of the ritual involved.
Do you think we can find out if a fractional offering would spare us the wrath of this entity?
I believe so. I think I can talk to Tamri about it tomorrow.
Look, I'll go hungry a night or two if it means if I can protect this group. Fair enough. If I can protect just myself, I'll go hungry a night.
Okay, is it safe to say you're kind of all bedding down?
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
I am.
Okay, no problem. You sleep through the night. It's cold, but it's oddly easy to sleep as well. It is warmer under the sailcloth, and at night time it's kind of tacked down at the front, and you've all got your winter clothing to kind of curl yourself up in. You kind of you wake up occasionally through the night with a slightly frozen face, but other than that, you're relatively comfortable. You're all woken in the morning. And kind of slowly drift into awareness to hear a loud voice crying out from the deck of the ship. It is Ogval's voice, and he's calling out, "Arello! Arello, where are you?" And let's leave the session there.
Heck.
Cliffhangers. Yeah, so there we go. Another Symbaroum adventure completed. Well, partially completed. So now what we do at the end of these sessions, at the end of the stream, if anyone has any comments or questions, sling them into the chat, and John, our wonderful stream manager, will pop them up for us to discuss. In the meantime, I'll do the usual promotion-y stuff that I started off with as well. All social media and YouTube and Patreon is linked down below. We've got another series we run that's currently on Monday nights, which is Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. That is in fact on next Monday, and then after that it is moving to Tuesdays. So I'd say if you want to catch the very next episode, it's on this Monday. After that, we'll be running on Tuesdays. That's also at 8 o'clock GMT. I think that's all my lovely promotion pretty much sorted and done. Yeah. And you know what? Let's have a wee look at the stream status stuff. Dinner Tentacles, thank you for your follow. Yeah, that's it. Anything from the players?
There's a good link in chat there with some slightly outmoded but pretty good nautical terminology for boat geometry.
Nice.
Happy my niche hobby has finally been some use in role play.
Yeah, there we go. How is your boat, Chris?
Still floating, thank God.
That is good.
Nice.
That is good, especially if it's meant to be floating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, unless there's any more comments or questions, then we'll wrap up the session, and we'll see you next week for more hot Symbaroum action.
Mm-hmm.
Same time, same place. Thanks for watching, people. Thank you for stream managing, John. And thank you for playing role players. And we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
Adios.
Bye.